Back to Sam Altman. I actually wrote a piece in the Nonzero newsletter, well, perhaps a bit unkind, about him. I mean, just the headline and art were a bit unkind. Well, you can go see it yourself, but it's. Yeah, I had a theory because there's a paradox at the heart of the OpenAI drama, at least superficially. I mean, the way it was originally presented, and I think there was some of this dynamic, was that on the board, there was concern about AI risk and that he might be moving too fast and be too willing to, move fast and break things, as Mark Zuckerberg used to say. Now we now know that there was more backstage than that, and you may know even more than, I'm sure you know more than I do. There was tension between him and a particular board member. She had written something that basically said OpenAI is being a little too careless. And he, according to reporting, he tried to get her kicked off the board. And according to the reporting, there are some people on the board who think that he misled them about what other people on the board thought about whether to kick her off, whatever. I don't know. There was it gets a little Byzantine, but anyway, I still think some of the original narrative must make sense, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. But first, I want to say there is a kind of paradox that it illuminates, which is that he does purport to be very concerned about the risks posed by AI, but he is moving pretty fast at OpenAI. They've got right out of the bat, they had two different APIs that accelerate innovation in a certain sense and get more different kinds of things out there. Now they've unveiled this kind of do-it-yourself bot, which also, now obviously it's not the same as being open source, which accelerates things even further. That's not their model. That's Meta's model. But still, there does seem to be a paradox. He's concerned about risk, but he's moving very fast. And I went back and looked at some of his writing, and I had the following conjecture. Tell me what you think about it, which is that he thinks there is this view that alignment is this kind of magic bullet, like alignment is this binary thing. There's some secret out there about how you do alignment, and if once you do it, problem solved. And I saw hints in his earlier writing, I mean, even before OpenAI was started, that his belief was, look, it really matters who wins this race. He basically says, if a bad guy gets to AGI first or to superintelligence first, that's trouble. If a good guy gets there first, that's good. And I thought the subtext was like, because then the good guy will make sure that we use the alignment magic bullet, and everything will be fine. Now, I have a number of issues with this scenario. Again, this is conjectural. He didn't say all this. But first of all, do you think I've kind of got his mindset a little bit right?
At least partially, but it also, you have to think of him as a sophisticated thinker, which is, I mean, take, for example, kind of the bioterrorism circumstance. If the folks who are either intentionally or accidentally arming prospective bioterrorists get there first, you have a danger. If the people who are thinking about how you do bioterrorism defense and what are the things that you might do to defend against bioterrorism get there with the larger models first, then you're at least better off. Mm-hmm. And so it's an issue of, I'm deeply sympathetic with which systems get built first by which players who have what intentions and what kinds of deployment will have a very big impact on how the system evolves. That was essentially my gesture at, you go back to World War II and you say, do the Nazis or do the Allies, which build the A-bomb first? And the outcomes are very different.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to say about the OpenAI drama?
Well, a couple of things. So one, look, I think Sam does think that there's very much of a bunch of very positive things that come. He's not just racing ahead going, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster, but it only will be fine if we do it. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I tell people very often is there's a bunch of AI people who have messiah complexes and there's people who don't. And the way that you know them between the two is you say, if you don't create AI, who else should? And if you don't have a list of who those people are, you have a messiah complex.
Let me just interrupt and say, I actually said in that piece I wrote about him, I don't mean he has a messiah complex in the sense that Elon Musk does,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So go ahead.
And so, and like when you get to the drama, Sam was paying a lot of attention to AI safety criticism. That's part of the reason the board ended up the way it is. The fact of not having solo control. So there was a board that could actually, in fact, fire him, as a way of operating, all of which I think is very strong testimony to his ethical character, his actual actions, because, frequently, of course, people go, well, I'm going to have, dual class control. Like, I'm going to be ethical, but I'm going to have absolute control. Sam was devolving control in various ways. And I think
Mhm.
that's all very positive to showing his genuine intents, his genuine concerns. I'd say that on the drama, the mistake that he made was overemphasizing the AI safety and underemphasizing like knowledge of good board governance. Because what played out, and this is all fairly, kind of public on this, is the board said, well, we've lost confidence in Sam, so we're getting rid of him. And the world, including the employees, said, well, look, this is actually really a question of, do we have more confidence in you or more confidence in Sam? So you have to say some more about why you lost confidence in Sam so that we know whether or not we should have confidence in you or confidence in Sam. And even, having talked to a number of employees inside, they couldn't get a clear answer. And so their answer to the board, which is a historic thing, I've never seen anything like it, not even at like a 20-person organization,
Mhm.
let alone a 700, 800-person organization, where a huge majority of the employees, like 90%, signed a letter saying, okay, board, fire yourself and rehire Sam because we have confidence in Sam and not you. Otherwise, we're going to go work for Microsoft. And these are all the insiders, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's part of like being intelligent and good about board governance is this question around knowing how you also maintain trust in your processes and how you operate and what you're doing. And you are a custodian of that trust, not kind of a solo, like, what, I lost trust in so and so, like as a kind of a way of operating. And I think that's a good kind of overall color on it. And I think people undercount that some of this funky debacle. Now, I think Sam made some mistakes in over rotating towards AI safety and not enough to competence at board governance in where the board and
So yeah,
ultimately,
that's interesting that you put it that way because that wasn't the board's complaint, right? That he
yeah,
was paying too much attention to AI safety. If anything, the
yes,
opposite.
yes. Well, but I think that's because the board was not um, understanding in a way that they could persuade other people, like the employees, that to say, we think the speed at which you're going is actually, in fact, dangerous. And by the way, there are people who are tasked with, red teaming,
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
risk analysis and everything else in the organization. I talked to them. Those are some of the people I called when I read the news along with the rest of the world and said, "Okay, what's going on?" And they're like, "Well, we don't know what's going on. We're going to ask some questions." Right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the thing too that people should reflect as part of the high character that OpenAI as an organization, both Sam and the other folks, are trying to navigate that get revealed in this kind of, you know, frankly, fumble,
Mhm.
right? In terms of how the stuff operates, but it showed like some good intent about what kinds of things were playing out. And I think, if anything, now when we think about how do we ultimately rebuild the OpenAI board, it's like, look, let's keep safety and everything else in mind, but let's also make sure that we have high competence at board governance.
Thanks for watching Nonzero Clips. To hear more of this conversation and others like it, subscribe to the Nonzero YouTube channel or the Nonzero podcast feed. And to gain access to exclusive podcast content, subscribe to Robert Wright's Nonzero newsletter on Substack.